With the release of Odyssey closing in, I thought it a good time to take a look at some of the core features in Elite that could do with some improvement. Elite Dangerous then is a pretty large game. At this point there's many different elements to the game, a lot of moving parts. It's a game that everyone plays differently. However, that said, there are more than a few features that could do with either changing or improving. In this video then, I want to take a look at that. Just to be clear though, this video isn't about massive overhauls to the game, instead it's about quality of life improvements that I feel would make a massive impact to the game as a whole. Some people are entirely happy with the time it takes to travel around space, whilst others feel it's a little on the slow side. Now, I'm a bit of a broken record when it comes to this subject, but for me it's easily one of the largest problems the game has. Now, to be perfectly clear here, I'm not talking about hyperspace jumps. Travelling from one side of the galaxy to the other is just fine as it stands now. For me, the real issue here is SUPERCRUISE travel. There's a classic example right here. In the recent Thargoid community goal, I discovered a non-human signal source situated 80,000 light seconds out. The time to despawn for the signal source was 7 minutes, and it actually takes longer than 7 minutes to travel that distance. It highlights a real problem here. Sure, space needs to feel big, but at the same time, staring at a screen for 7 minutes without any interactions is the most dullest of gameplay, even if it can be classed as gameplay. So, whilst in the end I went to a different star system with closer signal sources, the real issue here is SUPERCRUISE acceleration and deceleration. Now, we all know that the closer you are to a body in space, the slower acceleration will be, and this is a huge time sink. Moreover, it's the dullest time sink in the game. Bottom line then, please Frontier in Odyssey, improve the travel times and get rid of the terrible gravity well time sink in SUPERCRUISE. The ship's HUDs in Elite Dangerous are conceptually very well put together. They offer all the information that is needed and, for the most part, do so with great readability and presentation. Whilst it would certainly be very nice if each ship manufacturer had their own variation on HUDs, that's not likely to be something that's going to happen. So aside from the variation, the other issue really is colour. So it's all good if you like orange. Now, to be fair, Elite does unofficially support HUD colour modding, at least on the PC. However, it's not very flexible and comes with numerous problems, such as having a negative effect on portraits. More recently, a fan-made app has been released that allows more flexibility in HUD customization. Essentially, this proves that Elite as a game can support HUD customization. Ultimately then, it seems to me that this would be a very nice feature to have in Odyssey. Whilst working on such a huge update, which very likely requires a rewrite of key aspects of Elite's code, why not also add the ability for HUD colour options? Now, there's a number of ways to check your ship's specifications and outfitting, but none of them are especially convenient. Among these options are using the outfitting screen at a station, to check your loadout, to look at the power priority menu in your ship, as well as the ship menu. These are far from ideal. What would work better is to have all of this information presented in a single location, perhaps not too unlike how the information is presented on the Coriolis website. A way then to directly check your ship from within your ship and do it at a glance. In another issue, very similar to the previous one, the cargo you carry in your fleet carrier again is a problem of presentation. In short, viewing the content of your carrier's cargo hold means scrolling through a long list inside your ship. On the one hand, it's not especially intuitive, on the other hand, it's quite inconvenient and poorly presented. There are better ways of displaying this information, assuming the game's code will allow it. A cargo hold screen that has a similar layout to the commodities market would be very nice, for example. Everything categorized and clearly labeled. It's a quality of life change that would really improve interactions with carriers and their owners. It took a while for bookmarks on the galaxy map and system map to even become a thing in Elite. And when they finally arrived, they turned out to be a very useful feature. However, organising them is a nightmare. Bookmarks very quickly descend into a long, unorganisable list. A quick solution here would be a user-curated bookmark folders. Another nice touch would be a search field for bookmarks, so let's see if that's something that could happen perhaps. A quick one here, planetary surface bookmarks. Now these obviously will become essential with Odyssey, but even now in a spaceship I've lost count of the times that I've found a fantastic surface location but lack the ability to bookmark it. So here's a much needed request to Frontier, please add surface bookmarks, and I really do think they're going to be essential with Odyssey. Naming ships and fleet carriers is all well and good, but why not also have the option to add, or to name rather, SRVs and ship-launched fighters? Sure, to an extent these vehicles are disposable, however it would be a very nice addition, especially for those people who keep their SRVs around for a very long time. Now here's another one that's going to become more apparent as a problem with Odyssey. Right now the controlled bindings menu is a long list of expandable menu options. It can be very difficult to locate a specific control binding unless you know exactly where it is. With the arrival of on-foot gameplay, there will be yet more binding options added to the list. So what's needed here is very clear, a search field for binding options. There should be a dual search field, first that allows you to search by a keyword for the binding that you're actually seeking, but also a second search field that allows you to search by key binding. You can see on screen how this works with the Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's extremely useful, and for Odyssey is likely to move from being really useful to being an essential item. Rank progression has always been an aspect for the Elite franchise. Even back in the original game, players would make their way to the much vaunted title of Elite. For Odyssey, Frontier have confirmed that a new additional rank will be brought in, so it's worth talking about balance here. At this point, it's extremely easy to become Elite in trading, simply due to how fast money can be made. Exploration is generally pretty easy too. And combat, meanwhile, is the hardest of the four. It does take a little bit longer. And of course there's the CQC Elite rank, which is pretty useless and could perhaps instead be used as some type of combined arms rank in Odyssey if combined arms as a match is going to be a thing. Overall then, I really do feel that Elite ranks are something that need a balance pass. And talking of balance, credit earning is certainly something that needs to be addressed. I won't go into detail on the subject in this video, instead here's a table created by Commander Exigeous. In fact, do go and check his video out on the subject where he goes into great detail on this. You can find a link in the video description. There are a lot of permit-locked systems within inhabited bubble of space, but it's not really apparent which systems are locked. At least not until you either need to go to them or unless you manually look for them on the systems or the galaxy map, something which would certainly take a long time. A list then of all permit-locked systems would be a very nice addition to the Codex. This list should reflect which permits you currently have, as well as which ones are available but you don't currently have. Not only is this a nice quality of life improvement, but it also offers completionists another goal to achieve. I don't think anyone could ever legitimately complain about the audio in Elite Dangerous. It has a stunning design and is widely praised, and quite rightly so. That's not to say though that a few improvements couldn't be made here and there. Some changes to the UI interaction sounds to make them sound a little bit more varied and a bit more distinct wouldn't be a bad idea at all. It would add some variety and also give some audible context. A nice way then to round out an already stunning achievement. Here's another one for fleet carriers, a list of who is on board your carrier. This one would be especially useful for squadrons and player groups and players who want to carry their friends to different locations with their carrier. Right now it's completely impossible from inside the game to tell who is on board your carrier. Now if offering a named list can't be a possibility, then it would also be nice instead to have a visitor count for your carrier, showing how many people have docked there in addition to how many people are currently on board. In terms of the benefits to gameplay, this would be handy information to know, as it would better inform carrier owners whether or not to move their carrier or wait a while or wait and see who needs to turn up. Very recently, a new fan video emerged highlighting a fantastic bug on the system map. This allows you to zoom into nearly every type of planet for close inspection. Honestly, this is so good that it really shouldn't be a bug, but rather a feature. Some years ago, when the new surface maps were introduced to the system map, Frontier allowed players to see the surface of the map without flying to the planet, at least during the initial beta, and this created some uproar from those who felt it undermined the gameplay. And so we ended up with the current situation of having to fly to a planet before being able to see the map itself, something which I feel absolutely wastes the fantastic maps that are available in the game, because for the most part players just don't get to see them unless they spend a lot of time going over to them. And personally, I also feel that this greatly reduces options. It undermines the decision of whether the trip is even worth making. So an improved system map then would be most welcome. Clearly this bug shows the game already works in this way, so why not unlock this as an official feature? It would add immensely to exploration. The background simulation is a vast topic, and whether or not you actually play the BGS, it will still have consequences on you as a player. For this reason, being able to search for specific faction and system states would be a fantastic additional option. Now, whilst of course you can filter by system state on the galaxy map, having a searchable field would be a nice added option. Talking of search functions, the ability to search in-game Galnet articles would be a very useful one. And if that's not possible, then selectable keywords would be the next best thing. With Galnet returning to the fore along with the story it brings, it's a shame to see it all get buried in a huge list of non-searchable articles. POWERPLAY is a pretty big topic, just like the background simulation. It's a game mechanic that was introduced all the way back in 2015 as the part of a major patch update. The aim, as Frontier specifically stated at the time, was to create a long-term board game styled element within Elite, something with which players could engage and earn rewards by pledging allegiance to a chosen power and to help it expand. Over the years, numerous problems have presented themselves with how the system works, and as yet Frontier have never really made any significant changes or improvements to POWERPLAY in general. Now, some years ago, then lead designer Sandro Sammarco discussed numerous potential improvements to POWERPLAY. These improvements were all very well received by the player base, and I think in fact it would be very fair to say that they were perhaps among the most widely supported proposals that Frontier have ever put forward. However, these changes ultimately never made it into the game. Odyssey then could represent a perfect opportunity to not only bring in these improvements, but also expand POWERPLAY gameplay to the on-foot section of the game. For proposals themselves, do check out the link in the video description. The system map is an essential component of Elite Dangerous, but I'm going to be very blunt here. Since the arrival of fleet carriers, it has become a complete mess. The abundance of fleet carriers in any system poses a real issue for the presentation of the system map, and it also makes navigation difficult, and yes, as I say, it does look very unpleasant. This is something that needs to be really improved, and as of right now, the state of it really does a disservice to the system map and the game itself. So whether it comes to a filter or something else, please do tidy the system map. The Codex was added into Elite with the arrival of Beyond Chapter 4, and that was back in December 2018, so nearly 2 years ago now. A part of the Codex that very quickly gained some attention was the RUMOURS section, a concept that would feed vague information to the player base and encourage them to investigate. 2 years later, this feature has never once been used. It seems like such an obvious advantage for the game, so why not make Odyssey the time to use this feature? So there we have it then, 19 things I'd like to see fixed and improved for Elite Dangerous Odyssey. These are pretty much all core aspects of the game, and most of them are quality of life updates. Hopefully most of these are relatively simple fixes in the grand scheme of things, so yeah, it'd be nice to see them introduced and updated. And meanwhile, if there's anything I've missed off the list, anything you'd like to see added yourself, then do let me know in the comments section below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.